Hey everybody, it's GobletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'll be playing a sealed event of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, probably the final sealed event as this is the last day we get to play this sealed format. So I'm excited to hop back in, give it one last shot here before we are stuck to just the drafts. So without further ado, let's see what sweet cards we might open today. Alright, so we have a pretty sweet collection of rares. We have a couple of the channel legendary rare lands. These are all sweet. If you end up in that color, it gives you a very flexible card, a card that is a land if you need more lands, like drawing it in your opening hand, or if you draw it in the late game, it still does something. It gives you kind of a weak spell ability, getting 2 1/1s or bouncing any permanent to its owner's hand. So both of those are really nice to have if we end up in red or blue, but neither are really a massive reason to head into those colors. In white, we have two really good rares. We have the Restoration of a Gonjo. This is a 3-mana saga, and the total effect we'll get out of it is pulling a plains into our hand, discarding a card and returning a permanent with mana value 2 or less from our grave to the battlefield, and then spitting out a very nice creature, a 3/4 vigilance that spits out a 1/1 spirit token whenever it attacks or blocks. So this card is really good. I love the backside of this card, the 3/4 vigilance, but even the front side is quite solid. Make sure you hit your 4th land drop, and that second ability, you can return the permanent that you discarded. So if you pull out the plains with the restoration, you could just discard the plains and then bring it to the battlefield tapped to just ramp up a little bit. So pretty nice effect on the front half too. Really like this saga. The other rare in white, however, is even more powerful. This card's absolutely absurd. Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa, probably one of the best rares in the set. It's a 4-mana 3/3 flyer with flash, meaning you get to cast it at instant speed, and when it enters the battlefield, you can have another target permanent gain indestructible for as long as you control Kyodai. If you're playing 5-color, you also get to buff it with +5/+5, but that is very unnecessary for this card to still be incredibly powerful. You're basically always just going to use this to either save one of your cards from a combat trick, make one of your cards win combat instead of trading with your opponent's card, and then just leave behind a 3/3 flash flying. Really, really, really good card here. And the thing is about the indestructibility, it's not just target creature gains indestructible till end of turn. That creature is indestructible until they deal with Kyodai. So you kind of get 2 bombs in one here until your opponent blows up Kyodai. You've got 2 cards on the board that are going to be a really big hassle for your opponent. One indestructible creature and one 3/3 flyer. We've got a couple black rares here, but they're not that good. Mukotai Soul Ripper is a fun card. It's relatively powerful, but it's kind of like uncommon worthy vehicle stats. But yeah, it's a fun card. A 4/3 that you can sacrifice an artifact or creature when it attacks to get a +1/+1 counter on it and give it menace. So it's definitely designed around kind of the black-red artifact sacrifice color pair. That's where it will work the best, but it's fine in any black deck. And the Invoke Despair, it's one of the Invoke cards, so very restrictive casting cost, so you want to have a huge impact from casting this to justify the amount of swamps you'll need to run. And this is one of the weaker invokes in my opinion. Not like the worst invoke ever, but I'm definitely not trying to push myself into black just to get this, because most of the time this is like your opponent sacrifices a creature and then they lose 4 life and you draw 2 cards, which is pretty powerful. That is a 3-for-1, but again, for just how restrictive the mana cost is, it's a little bit weaker than I would have hoped. So those are our sweet rares. Definitely looking to get into white over any other color. All the other colors, I think it really just depends on what's in our sealed pool, whether or not we want to go into them. I don't think any of the other rares are so powerful that I really want to force myself in that direction, especially because even though we have 2 black rares, the one that's easy to cast isn't really a big deal. It's not really what I would classify as a bomb, and the one that is a little more bomby is just incredibly hard to cast, so I'm actually not that excited about the black here. So yeah, let's take a look through all the colors here. Certainly hoping that white is good, that it has the support, because both our white rares are quite good. We do have Selfless Samurai, one of the best 2-mana cards in the set. A little bit of lifelink, a little bit of protection for your other bombs. We can sacrifice this to give our our Architect of Restoration or our Kyodai Indestructible until end of turn to keep that on the board in response to removal. So Selfless Samurai is definitely going in here. You can always use removal, so we'll slam in a few Wanderer's Intervention if that's the removal we've got in white in the sealed pool. A Gonjo Exemplar, don't love the 1 toughness on this card, but it should pair well with a Selfless Samurai and a couple Moth Rider patrols. So I will put those in there. What else do we have here? Imperial Subduer. We do have 2 Moth Rider Patrol, 1 A Gonjo Exemplar, 1 Selfless Samurai now to combo with this, so this should synergize well with our deck. Don't love the Dragonfly suit, but we do have a couple 1-power creatures, the 2 Moth Rider Patrol. We also have the Restoration of a Gonjo spitting out 1/1 Spirit tokens, so we could have some creatures left behind to crew this, so I will temporarily put this in here. And then with the katanas, we have a good amount of Samurai and Warrior so far in white, but we would prefer if our second color has some to really commit to playing double katana, so I'll just put 1 katana in for now. Befriending the Moths is solid but slow. Another katana is as well solid but slow without being able to pay just the 1 to equip. And Light the Way, just a little combat trick here. Currently we already have just triple removal spell, an equipment, and a vehicle for kind of non-creature slots that's relatively full. I think that's the bare minimum for the white. I'll start with that, but we'll consider the other cards in the future. So see how our blue is looking here. Not a lot of interaction in blue. Looks like all our blue cards are pretty much just good creatures, but they are quite solid. Double Network Disruptor. Nice 1/1 flyer to get down early that also has good enter the battlefield effect to matter even late game. Moonsnare Specialist, another creature with a good enter the battlefield effect. Good to ninjutsu this out with the Network Disruptor as well. Puzzle Maker's pretty solid, a really large blocker that can just keep scrying if you've got a vehicle to combo with it, like the Dragonfly suit. Then you can hold it up as a blocker and just crew that Dragonfly suit during your opponent's end step, even if it's already tapped or something, just to go ahead and scry 1 with your Puzzle Maker. Double Sky Swimmer Koi. Yeah, we have a good, just like blue-white flyers pile here, it looks like. Couple Mirror Shell Crab for some early game counter spells, late game, just game-ending giant ward creatures. Grab a Covert Technician here. This synergizes well with our Network Disruptor. We can ninjutsu this, returning the Network Disruptor to hand, then it deals combat damage to player. We put the Disruptor right back onto the board, so we didn't lose any board presence to cast this for only 2 mana. Of course, we'd play Otawara, Soaring City. Blue-white does actually look pretty nice here. Not a ton of removal, just the white removal, really. But looks like a pretty solid, just blue-white flyers sort of deck. My biggest qualm here would be we might want to cut Ancestral Katana because obviously blue does not have any Samurai or Warrior. So we have 3 Samurai and 2 Warriors. So we have 5 cards that'll get the cost reduction on Katana. But I think we can still... I think it'll buff, because if we don't have a Samurai or Warrior on board to get the cost reduction on this, it's kind of okay to spend 3 if we're slapping it onto a flyer, and that is what the blue-white deck looks to be doing here. We have... I wonder if it says... No, it doesn't say. We could see if we can do this. No, I'm not exactly sure. Let's see, rules text, oracle text, oh. There we go. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 flyers, although 1 is a vehicle, so we're not really going to be equipping that. But yeah, if we're spending 3 mana to equip the katana, that's a fine deal if we're putting it on a flyer. Just not a great deal on any regular creature. So the fact that we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 flyers means, yeah, I'll still run 1 katana in here. Yeah, looks like a pretty fun, just like blue-white flyers sort of tempo deck. We've got a little bit of bounce to slow our opponent down. We can kind of ruin their removal spells with Kyodai and stuff. Network Disruptor taps things down, keeps our flyers getting in there. Pretty happy with the looks of that, but we'll keep moving on. Make sure to check all of the colors here, see what looks best. Moving on to black now. Dockside Chef is pretty nice. Whenever anything's going to die, just sack it and draw a card. Okiba Reckoner Raid, one of the best 1-mana sagas in the set. We'll try out the Soul Ripper probably. Chainfil Centipedes are fine. They're particularly good on flyers, so I like them with our Moth Rider patrols. Don't like the discard spells, don't like the Energy Blade much, but I guess this would also be fine with our cheap little flyers. Wow, there's not a lot going on in black. These are my favorite black cards here. Other than that, we could try to get the Invoke cast if we run a lot of black sources. Probably play Shadow Walker. We've got a decent amount of ways to get that ninjutsu off, but probably not enough ninjas or rogues to want to run the Kami Restless Shadows. I just don't really like the discard spells in the formats. Energy Blade. I mean, I guess we could go for it, but Debt to the Kami, very situational. You're Already Dead, also very situational. Not in love with the black cards here. Moving on to red. Red could be exciting if we have a lot of Samurai and Warrior in the color pair. We have some good card draw and some good removal, that's for sure. Experimental Synthesizer, nice card draw to play out on like turn 4, because then we hit anything that costs 3 or less and we're casting it. Kumano Faces Kakazan's a nice aggressive card here. When we play a 2-drop creature, it'll come out with a +1/+1 counter, and then this will flip into a 2/2 haste the turn after that. We have 2 of that. Play really aggressive Boros deck here. Voltage Surge, nice cheap removal, 2 damage for 1 mana. Unfortunately, Dragon Spark Reactor is really not going to go off here. We're not going to have enough artifacts. We currently have 3, and even if we play every artifact in red, we'll have like maybe 7, which is not really enough for the Dragon Spark Reactor to go off. However, we do have other solid removal even without the reactors. We have Flame Discharge here, the Fireball effect, X mana to deal X damage to a creature. Certainly going in. Twin Shot Sniper, excellent removal, because it's 2 damage slapped onto a creature if you need it, and if you don't need the creature, you can still channel it for only 2 mana to do that 2 damage. Play Aki Ronin for more Samurai, and this will also make sure that we're more likely to have a 2-mana creature to cast after a turn 1 Kumano Faces Kakazan, which does seem important here. Normally I'm not particularly high on the Aki Ronin. I haven't played it very often just because it's not that exciting, but it is pretty good to follow up a Kumano Faces Kakazan, plus it's an important card type for us, being a Samurai or Warrior. We don't have a ton of modifications here, but Upriser Renegade is still a Samurai. We do have 2 Kumano Faces Kakazan to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, so that is a modification. We've got an Ancestral Katana that's a modification. We could probably play 2 Katana, cut 1 Dragonfly Suit, just to have more modified in the deck. Then we have 2 Equipment. Yeah, I think we'd run a Renegade for the creature type, mainly, but we have a couple ways to modify. Steelbreaker seems fine here, but not super exciting. Ogre seems fine here, but not super exciting. But so Kenzen does seem sweet. And then if we go this way, we want to play 2 Katana, no Dragonfly Suit, I think. And I completely forgot to check the gold cards when we were blue-white. We could have played a Prodigy's Prototype there. That would have been pretty cool. I think this is one of the better vehicles, because once you start attacking it with it kind of just keeps crewing itself. The first time you do have to, crew with 2 power of creatures, but then it'll attack, it'll create that pilot token. That pilot token will crew it the next time, and then it'll make another pilot token to crew it the time after that. And it'll just keep spitting out tokens. So, yeah, this is pretty nice. We would definitely play it if we ended in blue-white. But let's make sure. Was there anything else we would have played in blue-white? Oh, yeah, we'd probably play Searchlight Companion. Don't know about Walking Skyscraper there. It's just a lot of mana, but it is quite powerful. Hexproof while untapped. I don't think we have enough artifacts for Patchwork Automaton here, but we might play Searchlight Companion here. Containment Construct is good with our double Aki Ronin and our Twin Shot Sniper. Is that enough synergies to run the Containment Construct? I don't know, but I'm probably going to try it. I'll probably play it over the Upriser Renegade, I guess. So the Containment Construct, if we attack with something with Aki Ronin, that makes us discard a card to draw a card. With a Containment Construct, the card we discard, we just choose to discard a land and then play that land per turn with Containment Construct's ability. With channel effects like Twin Shot Sniper, we have to wait till we have 6 mana, but once we have 6 mana, we can spend 2 mana to channel the Twin Shot Sniper. We will then have discarded it for Containment Construct's effect, and we'll spend the additional 4 to then cast it as well. So we could basically make Twin Shot Sniper deal 4 when it enters the battlefield, which is a pretty sweet combo there too. We definitely play an Asari Captain in this this Boros Samurai deck. But that looks to be it in terms of multicolored and artifact cards. We've got a lot of sweet green multicolored cards here, but not a lot of sweet green in general. Green is definitely a support color just for if we want to play these green multicolored cards. Sorry, I know I'm a little off track here because we've got this Boros deck, but I think I'm going to commit to the Boros deck, so I just want to quickly go over what the other options here are because we've looked at every color except green. I don't think green-white looks particularly good to me because green is just kind of a weak support color for us. There's a Fang of Shigeki that's a solid early game. Nice little protection with safekeeping, little 2-drop. A little bit of removal, Fade into Antiquity, Exile and Artifact Enchantment, but yeah, not a lot of green cards here. Double Tails Master Shiro is nice to be ending games, but really if we ended up playing green, the biggest reason that we would end up playing green in the sealed pool is the multicolored cards. Colossal Sky Turtle, a massive game ender with backup plans if you don't have the mana to cast it, and Gloom Shrieker, just a really good value card. It's just an Eternal Witness with Menace, which is incredible. So yeah, Gloom Shrieker is pretty sweet. Yeah, I think I just want to play Boros Samurai. That seems pretty fun to me, and it's not often that you get the opportunity to play that in sealed. And there aren't very many cards in red or white that aren't in the deck right now, so let's just put them all in and then cut from there. Definitely not going to play Papercraft Decoy. We don't have any synergies with it, and even when we do, it's not the greatest thing ever because you do have to spend that 2 extra mana. Probably not enough artifacts for Patchwork Automaton, probably not enough modified for Skyscraper, but those are both possibilities, whereas Papercraft Decoy I think is just not happening in this deck. Okay. So first and foremost, this is every single artifact outside of the Papercraft Decoys, and it's 13 now for Double Reactor Patchwork Automaton. However, that includes playing Walking Skyscraper, that includes playing Dragonfly Suit. We'd have to play some artifacts I'm not super pumped about. Yeah, I just don't really think that's gonna work super well with like everything else our deck is doing, especially because we have to play like Walking Skyscraper. I feel like I really just want to cut a lot of the artifacts here. So we really have to build around the whole artifact theme if we want to have all 13 in here. We have 11 Samurai and Warrior cards. So I think we can just really go down that path with our double katana, with our Asari Captain, Selfless Samurai, Agonjo Exemplar, all these kind of sweet samurai payoffs. See, I think I'm just going to cut a lot of these artifacts here. Because they're cards I don't want to play unless I have like 10 or more artifacts, and if we cut one, we start getting to the point where we kind of want to cut all of them. We have 15 creatures, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sagas. So we basically have 19 creatures right now, which is 1 million. So we can cut a few of those. Don't love befriending the moths here. I don't know, it is a pretty great way to get extra damage in when you're an aggressive strategy, and we look pretty aggressive. It's a really good follow-up to a turn 3 Unstoppable Ogre. Then you make it a 5/2 flyer the next 2 turns to just chip half of your opponent's life total down. That's 10 damage in 2 turns. That actually could be kind of exciting. Yeah, we'll stick the Befriending the Moths in here, keep that in. Steelbreaker is a warrior, but that's most of what it's doing here. I am probably cutting down a little bit more on artifacts still. Searchlight Companion doesn't really synergize at all. It's just a fine card in general. So that's a consideration to cut as well. Don't think we're cutting any of these 3 cards. Unstoppable Ogre is usually pretty medium, but it has a good creature type, and we're looking aggressive enough to make use of the Enter the Battlefield effect as well. Upriser Renegade is going to be a little bit iffy here, because it's not always going to be triggering. Often it'll just be a 2-mana 1/3, but again, it does have good creature type. Containment Construct as well, it's not always going to be triggering. We have 3 cards to synergize with it, and otherwise it's just a 2/1 if it's not popping off. So that's a potential cut as well. Definitely not cutting any of the other 2-drops though. These are all pretty sweet. Not cutting any of the 1-drops, those are all sweet. So those are all options to cut. We're definitely keeping all the removal, the interventions, the surge, and the discharge. I could see cutting 1 intervention, but not more than that. So for non-creature cuts, it would just be the tricks. But we're an aggressive deck that can use tricks pretty well. What's going to be the better trick in our deck? Honestly, +1/+0 first strike is probably a better trick in our deck than just a +1/+1 counter untap. Although, it's a really hard choice. We have a lot of good creatures that have higher power than toughness, so giving those first strike makes it so, you know, if we attack in with a 4/1 Unstoppable Ogre, we turn it into a 5-power first striker, the Ogre will now just kill a 4/4 or a 5/5 without dying, whereas if we had just put a +1/+1 counter on and untap it, it'll still die. And it does kind of a similar thing with like a 2/1 or a 3/2 or a 4/3, stuff like that, where the toughness is lower than power. It's pretty good on it. Light the Way is not. But even though we have those 3, the Captain, the Ogre, and the Exemplar, we also have, you know, double Aki Ronin, twin shot Sniper that have more toughness than power. So we're kind of even between the cards that have more power and the toughness, and the cards that have more toughness than power. Plus, Light the Way has good synergy with some of our strongest cards. It synergizes well with Kyodai, because we can just return Kyodai back to hand if they're going to remove it, and then recast it and get another indestructible trigger. Synergizes well with Twin Shot Sniper. Pick that up, recast it, or discard it to do 2 damage to something. So I think I'm on Light the Way over Kindled Fury. We have 5 more cuts to do. I may actually cut 1 intervention here to keep Light the Way in, because I do think I like 1 random combat trick in the deck. Cut 1 intervention here, and then the final 4 cuts could just be these 4 creatures. We still have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 creatures. I guess that is getting pretty low. Yeah, I guess we are supposed to cut more non-creature stuff still. If we're getting really aggressive, 14 creatures is a little low. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I guess 15 creatures. 15 is not the end of the world, but I'd prefer like 16. Maybe because we left Light the Way in, we keep the Upriser Renegade in. Because now we have, what, 5 ways to modify? 2 Kumano Faces Kakazan, 1 Light the Way, 2 Katana. It's 5 ways to modify. Still like 1 out of every 8 cards in the deck though. So it's still not a lot. It's not consistent at all. But again, I mean 1/3 Samurai. Seems more consistent than any of these other cards. Because the construct only has 3 cards to synergize with instead of 5. Although it is a higher payoff when it does synergize than the Upriser Renegade is. Searchlight Companion doesn't really synergize with anything. It's just a good card. Kind of the same with Sealbreaker. We just have 8 artifacts. 8 is enough to occasionally use the Steelbreaker's effect. It does work well with the synthesizer. I kind of like leaving the curve pretty low. Try to just get on the ground running before other sealed decks will, because sealed is generally a slower format than draft. We could cut a land here too, that is a thing to consider. Our average curve is 2.3, even with this 4-drop and 3-drop that we might cut. Our average cost, not our average curve. So maybe I cut Steelbreaker. Construct. Companion, and a land. Right now we have 8 red, 8 white sources. Cut 1 red source, correct? Yeah, 14 white, 11 red. Cut 1 red source here. Now we have functionally 8 red sources, 9 white sources. Because of the Uncharted Haven giving us whatever color we need. Yeah, this looks like a pretty good deck. Yeah, I think this will be the deck that I'm going for here. I'm excited to see how it plays if we can't curve out pretty well against some slower decks. Play some pretty bomby stuff with Kyodai and the Restoration of Eiganjo. Game 1 here, we've got a definite keeper. We've got a 2-drop into 3-drop curve with some removal to back it up. Ooh, and now we get to go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and immediately trigger the Aki Ronin next turn to rummage, discard a card, and draw a card if we want. I don't think we'll be wanting to do that quite yet, though, because I am going to want to play this on 1, this on 2, this on 3, so I'm not going to want to discard any of these cards, and I'm not going to want to discard any lands, because we want to get to 5 for the captain. So the big question here would be, what non-land would we want to discard to make it to the 5 mana for captain? And the answer is none of them, because we're curving out with them. So we will not be rummaging. Positions like this are why looting is better than rummaging generally. Maybe I should have discarded Mothrider Patrol, actually, because it doesn't fit into our curve at all. It'll just be like our turn 4 play here. So we would rather like discard it and hope to get a better turn 4 play. But yeah, when you're looting, when you're drawing and then discarding, then it's always like, well, if you draw something that's worse than all the cards in your hand, you can just discard that one instead. But if you're rummaging and you discard the Mothrider Patrol and then just draw, honestly, I don't know what would be worse than Mothrider Patrol right now. But theoretically, if I drew something worse than Mothrider Patrol, I would be very sad about it. Light the Way might be worse than the Mothrider Patrol here. We're definitely rummaging one of the 1-mana cards this time. But first and foremost, do we want to Unstoppable Ogre? I think we do. We don't have the mana to kill the Bronze Plate Boar with Flame Discharge yet. So we definitely want to just put the Unstoppable Ogre on the board. But there's not really a reason to shut off its ability to block here. Let's go... Let's discard the Mothrider Patrol here. Light the Way will give us a modified creature for the Flame Discharge. We can modify the Unstoppable Ogre, and then Flame Discharge will do 2 additional damage because we have a modified creature, so it'll make sure even if we don't hit a land next turn, we can blow up Bronze Plate Boar. Spend 1 mana to Light the Way on something, and then 2 mana to make X equal 1. And then, 1 plus 2 is 3 to kill the boar. So excellent draw here. We get Kyodai if we hit a 4th mana. And then this is where not having looted away that Mothrider Patrol last turn could come back to bite us. Because then we could have discarded Mothrider Patrol last turn, discard Light the Way this turn, because now we would prefer a land over a Light the Way just to get to Kyodai. Here's the Kami War from our opponents. That's just gone. So they are playing 5-color... fun stuff here. We've got the 4th land for Kyodai, and since we have that guaranteed, I think we want to just not discard a card here because we like all these cards at this point. We want to just play this land, get that ready to cast Kyodai, but for now we're going to Light the Way on one of our creatures, and then Flame Discharge the Bronze Plate Boar, so we're hoping they block with the Etching of Kumano here. But even if they don't, both of these are instants, so we can still try to get the 2-for-1. Untap Akiron, have a 2-4 blocker to block the etching, and then Flame Discharge the Bronze Plate Boar as well during their turn. That could go poorly for us if they have combat tricks or counter spells in hand, but I think it would be worth the risk if they choose not to block here. If they do choose to block here, they make the decision easy for us, and we can, and we can do it right now. Clear their board. Deals X plus 2. Yep, so X equals 1. 1 plus 2. 3 damage. Auto pay. So if we hit a land here, we actually just want to drop our captain over our Kyodai. I wonder what they've got left in their hand. They are a 5-color deck here, so it's possible they can't cast everything in their hand. It's really nice to see the Kami War get exiled permanently off the Tempered in Solitude, so we don't have to deal with that in the future. Alright, just land for turn. Selfless Samurai, get some lifelink going on. I think I'd rather just Kyodai during their end step. But Selfless Samurai is still going to be nice to have, so I'm just going to attack both. No discard draw here. It'd be really nice to have a piece of protection that can protect Kyodai. There's the green source. So they should be able to cast anything in their hand now, unless they're playing like double green cards. 3/4 flyer, that is pretty annoying. It's exactly big enough to block Kyodai. What are we going to do about that? Probably just drop a 4/3 haste, right? Probably the plan. Do accept a trade. Yeah, they only have 1 card in hand, so we would accept a trade if they do that. So let's cast our Kyodai here. Protect our flyer. Alright. I was considering not casting Kyodai, so we'd still have Kyodai around to protect Asari Captain, but then it's like they have 1 card in hand. If we're trading Captain for their only card on board, then we are probably winning this game regardless, so we should just dump all our mana, get our creatures out as quickly as possible to try to close the game out quicker, so they can't draw into maybe a second copy of the Kami War or something absurd. This Upriser Renegade's going to be nice and big. Nice little 2-mana 3/3 there. We are attacking for lethal this turn. They've got no creature out. We'll see if they drew a card that will let them survive. That is a no. That will be 1-0 for the 6 Samurai deck. We're technically playing 7 Samurai, but, you know, you gotta get that Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference in there somehow. Round 2 of the final sealed event here. Definitely going to keep this hand. There are issues with it, of course. There's no second color, no red mana here, and no turn 1 or turn 2 creature. But when we've got a great bomb like the Restoration of Aganjo in hand, we are going to keep this and hope for the best here. Unfortunately, it looks like our opponent is off to an aggressive start. Could be max punishment here. They are on red-black, so a very aggressive color pair. We do draw the red source here turn 2, so things are going well on our side of the board. We just gotta hope that things don't escalate quickly in terms of the amount of damage our opponent's doing here. Looks like still no, at least not playing a 2-drop and giving it haste or anything. I think Rabbit Battery is a scary enough card to go ahead and just Voltage Surge here, especially since the Surge is only going to kill a 4 toughness creature maximum. Return to action. Okay, so we trade our Voltage Surge for return to action. Seems pretty fine. Take no damage this turn, and they don't put another creature out because they don't have any mana up anymore. Twin Shot Sniper is an excellent draw here. So we get another shot at the Rabbit's Battery, the Energizer Bunny over there. Grab a Plains with our Restoration of Eiganjo. Next turn we will discard a Plains to bring it back to the board tapped and play land for turn, so we do get ramp off of it. Grixis from our opponent. They drop down the Silver Fur Master and go ahead and equip it, making it a 3/3. That does blow up our twin shot sniper plans here, unfortunately. Would it be better to have 5 mana out this turn or just have a tapped Eiganjo Exemplar? I'm not casting twin shot sniper anymore, so what am I casting? Could cast Experimental Synthesizer and then do Subduer if we don't hit something good. I think getting a free tapped Exemplar's solid here. Instead of the 5th land, we'll just play the 5th land turn 5. So we just cross our fingers for no red card here off Synthesizer. Or do we just Subduer and hold up the Light the Way as a combat trick? It's probably better. Just reduce the effects of RNG on our play here. The Synthesizer play can always just hit our 4 mana Legendary Dragon or something and make us really sad. We can bounce this to save it. But if we put a +1/+1 counter on it, it still dies because it's -3/-3. We're fine with this. They're blowing removal on cards that are not our Architect of Restoration, so that's pretty fine to us. And I really like going ahead and killing the Silver Fur Master here so that they're down to just that Rabbit Battery, and we can kill the Rabbit Battery with Twin Shot Sniper. They aren't down to just that. They do have 2 cards in hand, but getting a 2-for-1 removal spell here seems really good. Looks like we can wait on it for the future, but then they could always play like a 5 mana creature and equip a Rabbit Battery, which seems risky. Again, it's a hard choice. Do we want to just slam in for 5? Or get rid of the battery right now when we know that we can? Let's get rid of the battery when we know that it's a possibility. Assassin's Ink, possibly just all removal in our opponent's hand. Easy Asari Captain. We're playing land for turn, so that next turn when we Synthesizer, we can play a land off the top if we hit it. Still get all max value. Still have as much mana as possible. Synthesizer is the kind of card you want 1,000,000 mana for. That way, when we get to the point where we're spending 3 and sacrificing this, we can still spend that 3 and have like 5 mana up to cast any of the cards in our deck. That being said, the turn you play it, you always want to play it before you play your land. In case the top is a land. Top is not a land, it is a sweet card, and we will play land for turn. Set up that Synthesizer next turn. Get some massive Asari Captain damage in here. They're down to 8 life now. Get massive Asari Captain damage in again next turn. Put them down to 2. Be entering maintenance. Oh no! Well, for the first time in a while, we might have to cut the video in the middle of an event, because if maintenance cuts into my recording time, I got some other stuff to do today. Alright. Hopefully that doesn't blow everything up here. Akiron is a sweet draw. That makes it so Asari Captain is now attacking for 6. If I crack the egg here, we have another Samurai, and that's lethal, right? It'll attack for 8, actually, because currently Captain is attacking for 7, because we have 2 Samurai on board. Crack Synthesizer, we have 3 Samurai on board. When we have 3 Samurai on board, Captain gets +3/+0 when it attacks. Yeah, go all in here. Sure, whatever we hit off the Synthesizer is just going to get exiled, but more importantly, we're getting a 2/2 Samurai down. Do they have the removal for the Asari Captain? We exile Twin Shot Sniper, since it is our non-Samurai creature, to make sure this still gets +3/+0. Yep, they just had a debt to the Kami there. That position there really showing off why I really I'm not a big fan of that. Card feels like it plays out that way whenever I cast it. My opponent will just have 3 creatures and one of them will be non-important, like in that exact position. Where it was like, well, I need all my samurai out. I've got 1 non-samurai. I'll just exile this random non-samurai and still find lethal. That being said, you're definitely going to see and have to play removal like that a lot more often in sealed than draft, because sometimes you just don't open up better removal. I'm not confident that this hand is a keep. We're just playing a Moth-Rider Patrol and holding up 1 removal spell. Needing to draw a red source, and even if we draw a red source, we just have a couple creatures, couple removal spells, nothing all that exciting. I think I am going to mulligan this one. I think the risk is not worth the reward. The reward is a very average hand if we do hit the red source. Alright, this hand is great. We probably get rid of 5-drop Asari Captain. Although I guess Kumano Faces Kakusan's not getting maximum value. We're not playing a creature turn 2, but still a pretty good hand, I would say. Twin Shot Sniper is a card I'm always excited to have. Well, now we are playing a card on turn 2. It's just still not a creature, so still no +1/+1 counter value from the second part of our saga. Opponent's on blue-black here. Virus Beetle. They're on white-black. Virus Beetle's pretty annoying here. We really want to get to 4 for Twin Shot Sniper. I might even just discard Katana. Got 2 removal spells for whatever they ninjutsu out here. Although them recasting a Virus Beetle will be pretty brutal. So we could just shoot this beetle pre-combat. This is the Declare Attackers. We could Wanderer's Intervention it right now, before they get any ninjutsu going on. Yeah. Always want to Wanderer's Intervention or whatever kind of removal you have during the Declare Attackers step before Declare Blockers, because once it's declared not blocked, that's when they can just pop off and return it to their hand in response to your removal with a ninjutsu card. So we're not that worried about Cloud Steel Kieran. It is functionally a really scary card, like when you look at it and read it, but we have 2 removal spells. We have Wanderer's Intervention or Twin Shot Sniper to get rid of it. It's only going to be a threat when they reconfigure it, and they won't have the mana to reconfigure it until we've already killed it. The Long Reach of Night. We have to sacrifice a creature, discard a card. This is really rough. We really want to guarantee our 4 mana for Twin Shot Sniper, so I don't want to discard this Plains. I don't love getting rid of Wanderer's Intervention either, but I want to keep hitting our opponent here. I think I'm discarding Wanderer's Intervention. Alright, unfortunately draw a 5th land off the top, so it would have been, in hindsight, best to discard the Plains there. But we really needed to guarantee we're just dropping Sniper, getting rid of the Kieran this turn. Fang of Shigeki. Our opponent is on green, white, black. The Fall of Lord Kondo will exile our Twin Shot Sniper. Experimental Synthesizer. Don't have much of a choice here. See if we can't get a 3 or less mana card. We do. We hit a land. The odds of us cracking the Synthesizer and being able to cast whatever we hit are really low here, with only 1 mana up. But we have 2 Moth-Rider Patrols in the deck, and we don't have that much larger of a chance of casting it next turn, because next turn we have what? We have 2 mana up after we crack the egg anyway, so might as well crack it right now. We get this land out of the way, so that was a pretty good deal. Pretty great hit off the Synthesizer. Just get a land out of the way so we can draw a non-land, hopefully. So, the Long Reach of Night is a 0/4 Menace. So we can't really attack into it. But it's still 0 power even on attacks because we have no creatures in our graveyard. So at least it's not hitting us. But it certainly did its work. It 3-for-1'd us, makes us discard 2 cards, and they get a creature out of the deal. So they got 1 card on their own and deleted 2 of our cards. So they've, as you can see, they've got 2 cards left in hand. They are winning in terms of card advantage here for sure. But luckily we're not under much pressure, so we have time to hopefully draw into another threat of our own. Virus Beetle too, yeah, we've had a pretty bad game. Card disadvantage wise, we've had to discard 3 cards. It's been rough. So they're going for ninjutsu here, obviously. It's a free ninjutsu because I only have 1 blocker. Yeah, and ninjutsuing the Long Reach of Night is really brutal because it's going to get rid of 2 more of our cards again. Could play the Ronin to the board and then just discard a land this turn, discard a land next turn. Could also not play the Ronin to the board, sack the Kamano, and then on the second turn, sack nothing, which is kind of cool, but I think I have to just play Ronin and discard this land. That way I have a blocker there, I have a blocker there, we're not taking any damage. But the cool thing with the Long Reach of Night, if you're ever playing against it, if you don't have any creatures on board, you can choose to sacrifice a creature still, and then you essentially just don't get hit by it at all. So that's why I was mentioning we could just like not cast the Ronin and then sack the Etching of Kumano, but then the turn after we sack nothing. But if we did that, we'd be taking 5 2 turns in a row, which is not ideal. We are still taking Mukotai Ambusher damage here now, though. Our opponent has drawn into removal for our Etching. Yeah, we can double block Mukotai Ambusher now. No reason to attack with the Ronin, because we have no cards in hand to discard. Tribute to Hirobi. We're going to get some 1/1 rats, but our opponent is going to get the rats back onto their board and start sacrificing them to draw cards. Yep, because our opponent's got the 0/4 blocker for the 1/1s, so we can't even get these killed in any way. Voltage Surge the Mukotai Ambusher here, I suppose, so that we can attack in with Ronin. The only way it dies is if they block with Fragment plus Silencer. If they block with Fragment plus Silencer, we kill the Silencer. Although, if I cast the Voltage Surge, we don't have any cards in hand to discard to do Zaki Ronins. We've had to discard all of our lands to double Long Reach of Night and Virus Beetle. Probably just killing Mukotai Ambusher and passing. I guess we can just pass then. Just kill it during their turn. It's a really good position for the Tribute to Hirobi. Card's a really weird card, because it looks like a 2-mana card, but you should basically never dump this out turn 2 in this format. Because your opponent can just like ninjutsu your rat away or something, or they can like actually get damage in with the rats. If you wait till a point like this where you have a 0/4 out, that's perfect when you have a 0 power blocker, because then your opponent can't do anything with the rats. Even if they attack you, you're not killing the rats on block, and you're just going to get them all back. I'm going to kill the Ambusher still. I think I do. Exemplar makes the Ronin's attack as 2/4s now, which is cool. But honestly, I need something really big to get out of this game, so I think at this point I'm probably supposed to just discard everything I draw unless it's one of our Mega Bombs. It might be close enough. It's like the second strongest card in our deck. I mean, it's not a flyer, which is an issue against their 3/3 flyer haste. Keep this in hand to discard it to the second part of the saga to bring back the Eiganjo Exemplar, or actually Experimental Synthesizer is probably better here. Draw a bunch of cards. Try to dig for anything here. Do they have another ninjutsu for the Animus? Or are they just chipping in for one this time? The Echo's really good with the Fragment of Conda because it gives them a guaranteed way to kill it as well. Alright, nice. No ninjutsu for the Animus again. That would be absolutely disgusting, the triple cast of it. But Virus Beetle's pretty great here too. Gets rid of our card to discard for the Restoration of Eiganjo. It's been just a disgusting game for us. If you don't like playing against discard, this is not the matchup for you. Our opponent has hit us with double Animus of Night's Reach, double Virus Beetle. We've just been far behind in terms of card advantage the whole game from it. Unstoppable Ogre doesn't really help us much here. I think I have to hit the Synthesizer. Hope for good draws. Moth Rider Patrol does actually give us a chump block here, but we're digging for like nothing here. Nothing at this point gets us out of this. We don't have a Wrath effect in our deck. We're at 7, they're at 20. They've got a life-linking 3/3 flyer that all we can do is chump block. Chainflail Centipede, make it a 5/3 flyer too. That will speed up the clock here. I'm going to scoop them up here. We don't have any outs in our deck to this board state at 7 life. We have to go for a chump block this turn, and even if we hit like our Kyodai or something next turn, their board state's wide enough to just attack us. And that was a rough game. A very, very well built deck from our opponent, putting us at a major card disadvantage really early on in the game and just keeping the pressure on, constantly forcing us to discard. So we just never really got to cast much or do much there. Just didn't have the cards to do it. Yeah, even if we drew our 3/3 flyer there, we would have had to chump block theirs. So we would have to draw our 3/3 flyer and a removal spell. We can't draw both of those in one turn. Yeah, no, there were 0 outs. I guess if we took the 5, then we could have went to 2 life, and then if we drew our flyer that made something indestructible, maybe we could live. We'd be at 2 life, then we'd make our 1/1 flyer indestructible when Kyodai enters the battlefield, and then just keep blocking with an indestructible 1/1 for them. Could also theoretically tap down their flyer with our Moth Rider Patrol, but functionally works the same as if we waited for Kyodai. Would be at 2 life. We crumble to 1 removal spell. We never have a way to pivot that into us putting pressure on our opponent. Still on the back foot. A matchup where just one of those games where every turn is just like finding a way to survive, not finding a way to win. And I think it was unlikely to change from that point on. We are in game 4 now, 2-1. Opponent starts with a Searchlight Companion. Ooh. Well, we're not going to attack into that if we hit the Restoration of Eiganjo here. So I would rather cast that than have to cast a Wanderer's Intervention or Flame Discharge to save my Exemplar. Especially because we do get to go ahead and Twin Shot Sniper next turn if we want. We probably will. Some ninjutsu here in the green-white deck. Nope, just getting some damage in. Repel the Vial, exile our sweet enchantment. Makes me pretty sad, but it's not the end of the world. We still have a sweet Twin Shot Sniper. Get rid of their flyer. Have a nice blocker for their 1/1 and slam in for 3. Still have 2 removal spells back up. That's why I'm so happy to just dump the sniper out on the board right now. Just our biggest play, and we still have backup spells to cast. Oseiju, who endures, really rude. Their land just gets to blow up one of my cards. Card is absolutely excellent in this format. It's the best best of the cycling lands, I'd say, because there's just so many artifact and enchantment creatures. Well, we've got enough mana here to where an experimental synthesizer would be like a really good draw. And we're winning the race. We're kind of just staring each other down with some really small board states right now. And we've got the spells to keep it that way with Wanderer's Intervention and Flame Discharge. Oh, they have an adorable pet. Little blue dragon here. Does not like me. Attack for 1. Show me the ninjutsu. Nope. We'll take 1. Just pass turn, alright. Another Wanderer's Intervention. Okay. We hit for just as much damage attacking with just the Exemplar, which means that we get to hold up Mothrider Patrol's ability. So we will. Wanderer's Intervention. We don't have anything to stop a Wanderer's Intervention. So now we're both hitting each other for 1 a turn. Just gonna start hitting each other for 1 a turn, I think. We'll see. Is this the pass turn here? No, play a 1/1 mana dork. That's fine. Coiling Stalker is less fine. Probably have to kill Coiling Stalker with a Wanderer's Intervention. We're not going to trade on blocks, just attack in. Opponent's winning the race because they have 2 creatures here. Casting Intervention again and declare attackers, not declare blockers. Alright, well, we'll just discharge that too. Coiling Stalker will lose indestructibility and die to state-based actions, because it has 3 damage on it and it's not indestructible. Could Intervention the Merge Keeper as well, but I don't think I should, even though they are winning the race. There we go, because I was going to say, as soon as we draw literally like any creature, they just stop attacking us on the ground, and then we're winning the race. And this way I still have removal if they play another Kyodai-style card. Playing against green-white, so I don't feel the need to hold lands in hand in case they have any discard. Unless they just go Swamp Virus Beetle, and I cry. Alright, they're winning the race again. 2 1/1s versus my 1/1/1. Kappa Tech Wrecker, super happy to have this Wanderer's Intervention on that. At some point pretty soon here, I'm going to have to start just tapping down one of their creatures with Mothrider Patrol rather than attacking, which is a bit awkward. let the Kappa-Tech Wrecker hit us here because we don't have an Artifact Enchantment anyway. Just kill the Merge Keeper, take less damage. Yeah, now they've traded their When We Were Young for our Wanderer's Intervention. But now we know everything in hand. This is the board state. A 1-1 and a 1-3 versus a 1-1 flyer. Now we've got another one, so we can tap down that and cast this. We need to start doing that because now we are very much at the life disadvantage. And we are in a top deck war. I have definitely pulled more of my lands out of my deck than they have, so... Oh, College's Terrarium will change that. I was going to say, so I think statistically, I should be slightly favored here, because I'm slightly less likely to draw lands from this point on. Terrarium's a great draw here. Pot a land and still get a counter on one of their cards, which does actually dramatically change the board position here, because now I have to keep tapping that down and letting the 1-3 in, rather than being able to tap down the 1-3 and trade with the 1-1, which was the plan before. Aki Ronin, a 1-3, not good against a Death Toucher, but now, if I draw any more lands, I get to discard them to the Ronin by attacking with one of my Mothrider Patrols. I think I am attacking with one Mothrider Patrol, because we're going to tap down the Death Toucher and block the 2-2. Forgot about the Aki Ronin when I was deciding whether or not to play lands. Playing lands is better if we hit like Experimental Frenzy in the future. Keeping lands in hand is better if we hit Aki Ronin in the future. I forgot to tap a thing down because I was mid-conversation. And we're going to get punished hard for leaving the shields down for a turn. That's absolutely brutal. This card doesn't do anything, does it? Return our Upriser Renegade to our hand. Make a Mothrider Patrol a 2-2, make an Aki Ronin a 2-4. I guess we make a Ronin big enough to block a Stalker. Yeah, it does something. So we don't discard it here. I am incredibly annoyed that I sped through my one opportunity to tap. Attack both. Not expect that at all. I guess I should have went for a double tap. We have one card in hand. They just like immediately draw into a trick, maybe? I was gonna say, I didn't expect the double attack because we could go like 1-3, 1-1 on the 2-2. I guess we could go 1-3, 1-1 on the 3-2 as well. No, that's a disgusting draw. I think I'm out of this one. I'm down to 1 life. Yep. Misplayed pretty hard with the Mothrider Patrols. Just thinking about some other things, so skipped through the combat steps. Just the kind of things that just happen on digital versions of Magic, on like Arena or Magic Online, that don't happen in paper. Because it's like, yeah, I fully intended to tap down every time I have the mana for it, but I just click OK one too many times because I'm thinking about other things. It happens. Could have had a couple more turns, but our opponent drew very well there and likely pressures us out of this game regardless. But a few more turns can always turn into Kyodai off the top. You know, several cards that off the top just change the game into our favor dramatically. So probably, well, I wouldn't say punted that one away. I would say punted away the chance of drawing into a victory. Nowhere near punting away like a guaranteed victory, though. Alright. We're going first with double Kumano Faces Kakazan, make this Mothrider Patrol a 2-2 flyer. And then if we get a 3-mana creature, Can make that bigger as well. Two flyer, let's go. Another Kumano faces Kakazan. Really aggressive start here. One of these is going to flip as a 2/2 haster next turn. The other one's going to put a counter on another creature if we draw another creature. We do not draw another creature though. But we do get to go Katana, equip the Moth Rider Patrol for a ton of damage really quick here. Attack alone to get the equip off, but then next turn we can attack both these creatures. Oh. Well, that pans out okay. Then we do still get the +1/+1 counter off of the Kakazan. Not bad at all. So that was a play that I think helps both players, because our opponent just wants to survive till they can play their bigger cards, because we've got quite an aggressive start here. And it's like we wanted to get our value off the Kakazan, so make both of us happy there. Why not? 3 mana here. Probably just attack all so I can Wanderer's Intervention. Wanderer's Intervention the Kitsune so I can still be attacking on the ground. Their land for turn, keep Sokenzen in hand. To discard this, get a couple 1/1s with haste. The GG from our opponent. They may be just like out of creatures in hand here. There's just too much damage for them. They are down to 6. We'll keep the land this time in case we hit the Ronin. Oh, that's rough. Yeah, just ran out of creatures in hand there against the aggressive start. Here we are now in round 6, 3 and 2. This is a slow hand and we need to draw multiple lands. We have both our 4 mana cards and our 5 mana card in hand. This is a risky one, especially on the play. Be a while till we draw. We have Voltage Surge to slow down our opponent. I'm going to keep this hand, but we could very much end up in a position very similar to what our last round opponent had, where they just played their one like early game creature that got killed and just died to an aggressive start against an opponent that plays a bunch of cheap creatures. But fingers crossed that doesn't happen, because if we last and we hit the lands, this hand is exceptional. So there's Experimental Synthesizer from our opponent turn 2 trying to hit a land here, I'm assuming. Yep, and they do hit a mountain and they play it. Get our turn 3 Unstoppable Ogre out, and luckily for us, it's panned out well so far. We are just the aggressor here. Even with this kind of slow hand. Attack for 4 here, get a 3/3 flyer out during their end step. Even better if they try to kill our ogre to survive, which is a possibility. Try to Voltage Surge it or Kami's Flare it. They have both their colors now with the Network Terminal, unless they're on 3 colors. But the Terminal can tap for whichever one they need. Can also draw a card, discard a card if they're just still digging for something here. They did Mulligan to 6, I believe. Thundering Raiju is the play. Yeah, I'll just race that. Should pretty easily outrace that. So 100% allowed. We're going to attack for an actual million this turn. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Unless our opponent somehow finds lethal this turn, we should very much kill them next turn. Because they are at 5 life now. If any of our 4 power creatures are still on board, Befriending the Moths gives 1/1/1 flying, hits them for 5 in the sky. So they would have to be able to kill Kyodai to get rid of Ogre's Indestructible, and kill Ogre, and kill Captain. They basically have to kill all 3 of our creatures, or play a lot of good blockers here to not die to Befriending the Moths. Like, technically they don't need to get Kyodai off the board for befriending the moths. But the only way to get Unstoppable Ogre off the board is to get Kyodai off the board, and they do need to get the Ogre off. So I think okay. They gain some life here. That is pretty big. We can Voltage Surge, sacrificing the Unstoppable Ogre. But if we sack the Ogre, then we no longer have lethal power. So we're not going to kill them in one turn anymore. So what is our plan? Yeah, lifelinker into a fight spell. It's a really big swing here. If we just had any other artifact, we blow up the Golden Tail Disciple. Without that, we grab a Plains. Do we just still befriending the moths? Then we can block with Ogre and sack it to Voltage Surge to stop any life gain and kill Disciple. Yeah, I think befriending the moths on Captain seems good here. Hold up the Voltage Surge. Make sure they're not getting any life so that we are hitting for lethal next turn. We are 1 damage off here. If we had one more Samurai, it would be lethal. One more Samurai or Warrior. I guess the problem is we don't get to get a block off here because the Raiju's going to put a counter on Disciple. But I could actually block Disciple with Ogre, then sacrifice the Ogre to the Voltage Surge to shoot the Raiju instead, and that will stop all their life gain. Because their Disciple will then be getting blocked by nothing, so it will deal its damage nowhere. And try to Master's Rebuke again. Maybe it would have been better to just Voltage Surge during our turn while they were still tapped out. Like, I like the idea of being able to block Disciple and sack Ogre and then they don't get any life, but they also just don't get any life if we had just killed their lifelinker in the first place. I would love to see attack both counter on Disciple here. Because I think either way we're blocking Disciple's sacking. Like, I guess we can block Raiju, sack, and target Disciple, but then if they have a channel spell to give the Disciple +3/+1 trample this turn, gain like 6 life here. We definitely can't just let it through. Puts our odds of death pretty high. Yeah, I think I blocked Disciple, sack here. I guess if they have +3, no, if they have the channel for +3/+1 trample and we sack the Ogre, then they still just do all the damage through and kill us. So we just wait here. Because if they don't do anything and then we do Voltage Surge and then they do channel, that would require a really hard read from our opponent. Of like, ooh, I know you've got the removal, so I'm going to make sure to wait to pop this off till after you try to remove. I feel like they're waiting so long here. They've got something. And again, if it's a channel for +3/+1 and we go for the Voltage Surge, God, why is Magic such a hard game? So if I click pass, this just happens, and they're at 4. 4 is dead to the captain. The captain will be in the sky. If I don't pass and I go for Voltage Surge, they get another opportunity to do a trick to save the Golden Tail Disciple. And if it's the one that gives Trample, then we die on the spot. I feel like if it was the one that gives Trample and they didn't just immediately cast it here because they present lethal, I'm gonna lose my mind. Because if it's the one that gives Trample, like, you just make your opponent happy, you just go for it. Because it's just, they're dead. Like, it was lethal on board. Yeah, it's 11 damage. They trample over for 5, and Raiju hits for 5. We would take Exactsies. So if it was Ironhoof Boar, they would have just done it. Yeah. Okay, thank goodness. So they gain no life now. They're just at 1. Sorry Captain is going to do some damage here for sure. We've got a chump blocker for Raiju. If they have removal for Captain, they need removal for Captain and Exemplar to kill us on the crackback. Well, there's the removal for the Exemplar. They're still at 1 life. What do we have engraved to get back? Nothing. I think we lose. We block Raiju. We're forced into a chump here now. Okay. We can't even chump. That's removal off the top. That'll do it. The 1 life comeback from our opponent. Pretty great stuff from them there. What would have happened if we just Voltage Surged during our turn to kill the Disciple? I think everything plays out the exact same way. We just don't have a blocker up. They attack in, pump up the Raiju. As they did. You know, everything goes exactly the same. We just take 1 less damage. So I guess we survive. We survive with 1 life. And get 1 more draw step if we just Voltage Surge during our turn, so that would have been better. But either way, 3 and 3, a nice average run to end off the sealed events. Take 1 final look at the deck for those interested. Pretty fun deck here. Definitely made a lot of misplays with it, though. Definitely against the green-white deck, I just missed a lot of Moth Rider Patrol taps. So pretty sloppy there. That last round, I can't say 100% exactly what went wrong, but we might have been able to pull that off playing some different lines. And then the round against the black deck that made us discard 5,000 cards, I don't think there was anything we were going to do, regardless of how we play throughout that match. So, 3 and 3 though, still a pretty nice showing. Could have probably 4-3'd, maybe 5-3'd with this one. Not the craziest deck in the world. It is definitely held up on the power of the Kyodai as a bomb, the Twin Shot Sniper, and the Restoration of Eiganjo. Definitely the best things this deck is doing by far. It's kind of my first experience really playing with the Aki Ronins, and they were not very impressive at all to me. So I think I'm just going to go back to my previous strategies of almost never running this card. Just did very, very, very little. Katana was fine. The removal was all fine. Light the Way was fine. That managed to kill some creatures as a combat trick. The Kakazan, Moth Rider Patrols, some of the best stuff we were doing. Selfless Samurai and Eiganjo Exemplar were great. Yeah. Everything else in the deck worked pretty well. I'd say the Aki Ronins were very, very medium. Upriser Renegade was pretty medium as well. But everything else really got to do its thing, got to pop off now and then. Pretty happy with the deck's overall performance, at least in the individual cards there. So 3 and 3, we'll grab our prize, but that is going to end today's video. As always, if you enjoy these videos and you'd like to see more, just stick around on the channel. I do these as close to daily as I can. Play it mostly limited, but I do play some of these special events now and then on Arena. So once again, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.